March 23rd, 2021 Committee on Zoning, Landmarks, and Building Standards is called to order. Pursuant to applicable law, the chairman has determined that an in-person meeting is not practical or prudent. Accordingly, attendance at this meeting will be by remote means only. We will start with a roll call. Committee members, please unmute yourselves. Alderman Hopkins. Alderman Hopkins. Alderman Dow.
Here.
Alderman Sawyer.
Here.
Alderman Beal.
Yep.
Alderman Ray Lopez.
Good morning, Chairman. Here.
Alderman Moore. Alderman Rodriguez. Mike? Alderman Cicho Lopez.
Here.
That's the long-term.
Alderman Raboyes.
Present, Mr. Chairman.
Alderman Cardona.
No.
Present, Chairman.
Alderman Wagasback.
Here.
Alderman Austin.
Here.
Alderman Villegas.
Here.
Alderman Riley.
Present.
Alderman Kappelman. Alderman Osterman.
Present.
Alderman Haddon. And Chairman Tunney is here.
Alderman Moore present.
Alderman David Moore is present. All right, we have 14 members.
Rodriguez checking in.
That's 15 with Mike Rodriguez. So we do have a quorum. I know that there are non-committee members on the line. Would you like to be identified?
Alderman
Alderman Rodriguez
Smith.
Sanchez here.
Alderman Rosanna Rodriguez Sanchez.
Yes, that's
Thank
me.
you.
Alderman Greg Mitchell.
Alderman Greg Mitchell.
Alderman Smith.
Alderman Michelle Smith. Okay. All right. Thank you very much. We will now move on to the approval of the Rule 45 report containing the minutes of the February 23rd, 2021 meeting, Committee on Zoning, Landmark, and Building Standards meeting. All members of this committee should have received a copy of the report electronically. And if hearing no objections, do I have a motion by the same roll call that was used to determine quorum to approve the minutes?
Alderman Riley so moves.
Alderman Riley makes that motion. Any objections to his motion? Hearing none, the report has been approved. Moving on, we will now hear the items to be deferred. I'll read the page number, the ward, the file number, the address, and the reason for deferral. Then we will take a motion for all at the end. On page 10 of the revised agenda in the first ward, file number 20616 T1 for the address commonly known as 1513 West Erie Street, deferred for the alderman. On page 10 of the revised agenda in the second ward, file number 20628 T1 for the address commonly known as 1628 through 1630 North Wells Street, deferred per the attorney. On page 10 of the revised agenda in the 19th ward, file number 20637 for the address commonly known as 1841 through 1855 West 95th Street, deferred per the alderman. On page 11 of the revised agenda in the 27th ward, file number 20631 for the address commonly known as 160 North Morgan Street and 180 North Morgan Street. This item needs to go in front of the Plan Commission. On page 11 of the revised agenda in the 27th ward, file number 20630 for the address commonly known as 140 North Ashland Avenue. This item also needs to go in front of the Plan Commission. Moving on, page 11 of the revised agenda, in the 32nd Ward, file number 20632 for the address commonly known as 2105 through 2125 West Lindale Street, 2200 through 2240 North Point Avenue, 2100 through 2124 West Webster Avenue, and 2201 through 2243 North Hamilton Avenue. This item needs to go in front of the Plan Commission. And lastly, on page 12 of the revised agenda, in the 45th Ward, file number 20629, for the address commonly known as 5415 West Higgins Avenue and 5372 West Lawrence Avenue, this item needs to go before the Plan Commission. Any questions from committee members? If not, can I get a motion to defer these previously listed items by the same roll call that was used to determine quorum?
So moved, Chairman.
That would be Alderman, Vice Chair Raboyes makes that motion. Any objections? Hearing none, these items have been deferred.
Thank you.
All right, now we are.
Chair, Alderwoman Haddon just wanted to be recognized.
Oh, thank you, Alderwoman.
Thank you.
All right. So before we get to the public comment period, for the benefit of the public speakers and also for committee members, I am reading the record is document number 020206185, an amendment to the municipal code section 17-2-0207 regarding special use approval, prohibited uses and parking standards for cultural exhibits and libraries within various residential districts. This item has been withdrawn by the sponsor, Alderwoman Sophia King. So in terms of, we will get this later in the agenda, but I wanted to make sure that the public knew, because we have a number of speakers speaking on this item, that this item has been withdrawn by its sponsor. So at this time, we will now begin the public comment period. Out of respect for everyone's time, each speaker is limited to 3 minutes to address all items on the agenda. This will be the only opportunity to address the items on the agenda, and the committee will not conduct separate public comment before each agenda item. And again, we have 13 speakers signed up today. And we will start with Mark Philman. Mark, can you, are you ready to speak on before the body?
Hi, this is Mark. So
Mark,
just
identify yourself for the record and let's go.
Hi, my name is Mark Filerman. I live in the 32nd Ward. I appreciate you allowing me to speak to you today. Is it my understanding that Alderman King withdrew the ordinance?
That is correct.
Okay. But is it important for me then to still speak today? I'm unclear as to then the status.
Well, we're not going to be discussing this item as it's been withdrawn, but since you took the effort to come in front of us, it might be short and sweet, and the floor is still yours.
Okay. Well, I appreciate your time either way. I appreciate that Alderman King withdrew the ordinance. I think it was detrimental to the city and to the culture and to the history of Chicago. I actually grew up in Skokie. I've been living in the city since I was 22 years old in 1992. My mom said I wanted to live in the city since I was 5 years old, no joke. I've been in my current condo in the 32nd Ward, that's Scott's ward, for the last 7 years. I'm on the very west edge of Lincoln Park. I'm right next to Logan Square. I'm next to Bucktown. My art studio is a quick drive over to Pilsen. I've been a full-time artist for 2 years. It is a very difficult career for a variety of reasons. I won't go into that here, but during the COVID lockdown, I saw how much the arts suffered, closed museums, closed galleries, layoffs, artists suffering, everybody suffering emotionally, psychologically, financially. So many people and entities are still suffering. The arts and the museums in all forms, in my opinion, are so important to Chicago and its history the culture and communities we live in and interact with contribute to who comes to live in Chicago and who decides to stay in Chicago. I started a small exhibit space called Fluffy Crimes in my condo in response to everything going on during the lockdown, particularly, that the arts and culture are suffering in Chicago. My goal is to help artists get exposure from Chicagoans and to help Chicagoans get exposure to the work of emerging and mid-career artists. My other goal is diversity. I try to get as much work by BIPOC and LGBTQ artists into the space as possible. The majority of the artists featured at Fluffy Crimes are from Chicago, and they fall into one or more of the above categories by BIPOC and LGBTQ. I feature about 15 artists per show every 2 months. I take no money from artists. In fact, I make no money at all. It's a pure labor of love. I don't feel that Fluffy Crimes is about me per se. It's about adding to Chicago's arts and history and diversity, culture, community. No other public museum that
Thank
I'm
you,
aware of.
Mark, your time is up. Appreciate it. The second speaker is Henry Wishcamper. And for the record, Alderman, committee member Walter Burnett has joined us also. All right, Henry.
Hi, thank you. Hi, thank you. My name is Henry Wishcamper. I appreciate the opportunity to speak. I am glad to hear that the alderman has withdrew this ordinance and hope that it will be permanent. I am a theater director and producer. I'm a member of the artistic collective at the Goodman Theater. I am also currently a master's student in the Urban Planning and Policy program at University of Illinois, Chicago, where my focus is on expanding the role of arts, culture, and recreational spaces as generators of hyperlocal economic and cultural activity, particularly in disadvantaged neighborhoods. I am also a volunteer with Big Blacks and Green, the driving force behind the Emmett Till and Mamie Till Mobley House Museum, which I think will be an extraordinary resource for the city of Chicago and its neighborhood of Westwood Lawn. I live in the 5th Ward, and I do think that this ordinance is extremely short-sighted and bad for the public good. House museums are a positive economic force for their communities. They provide additional business for local businesses. This current group of house museums being developed on the south side of Chicago offer an opportunity to correct decades of economic disparity and will bring money into neighborhoods that historically have seen money flooding out of the community. This ordinance places an inequitable barrier on groups that are already in the process of building vital cultural institutions for our city. I remember taking my kids pre-COVID to the 360-degree observatory deck at the John Hancock Building. And at the time that I went, the elevator waiting space was filled with wall-to-ceiling posters encouraging tourists to go out into the neighborhoods and to see the rich cultural legacy in our neighborhoods. And that felt to me like a moment when Chicago really got it. But now we have a group of Black House museums that have the capacity to achieve cultural tourism in our neighborhoods, to strengthen economic development, to engage Americans in our complex history. And we should do everything we can to encourage these groups. This ordinance clearly doesn't get it. Should it be re-offered, it would be another example of the city's history of aldermanic prerogative undermining the public good. So I would like to take this moment to celebrate the fact that this has been withdrawn and hope it will be permanent. Thank you very much for the opportunity to speak.
Thank you, Henry. Our next speaker is, and if I mispronounce it, I apologize in advance, Chris Chadwick. Chris? Let me say it again.
Okay.
Chris,
Yes.
is that you, Chris?
Yes, it's pronounced Schwedek.
Thank you. Okay, proceed.
Thank you, Chairman and members of the committee. My name is Christopher Schwedek, and I'm an architect working as a building code consultant in Chicago, as well as a resident of the Fifth Ward. For over 23 years, I've advised clients on matters relating to securing a variety of municipal approvals in Chicago and elsewhere. For several years, I have also volunteered as an interpreter at the landmark Roby House for the Frank Lloyd Wright Trust. I'm not speaking today on behalf of any organization or client, but as a private citizen with some professional knowledge and personal experience related to house museums and zoning ordinances. The proposed amendment to Section 17(2) of the zoning ordinance, I believe, created an unnecessary hindrance which has heretofore not existed and will only add time, effort, and considerable expense to such undertakings, making it especially difficult for not-for-profit organizations. Having read Alderman King's statement citing community concerns about seeking more procedural safeguards, she states that she understands all too well the challenges to preserve our cultural treasures, having experienced the many obstacles to obtaining landmark status for the Ebony Jet building as an example. This struggle, she points out, of landmarking our architectural and historic heritage is the very argument for not requiring buildings that have already obtained that status from having to further expend months of work in order to justify again what they have already established, that their building is significant enough to warrant attention as an exhibit and museum. Is it really necessary to revisit the same information all over again? Or can these arguments be folded into the same process for making the building a landmark? Do we really need another bureaucratic layer of costly hearings and meetings to say the same things? We live in a city that learned the hard way just how precious our architectural and historic heritage is. Many important buildings were lost forever under the wrecker's ball. Today, we celebrate both our triumphs and our tragedies by providing landmark designation. It can be a long and drawn-out process, but one that is achievable with the support of both officials and civic leaders. I could have supported this proposed amendment if it included an exception for those buildings that have already been given landmark status. Why make those who best envision how to these sites contribute positively to our neighborhoods and provide economic anchors in our communities jump through any more hoops than they already have done? So let's continue to provide opportunities to appreciate and learn from these sites and not impose more restrictive zoning changes and appeals hearings. Thank you.
Thank you, Chris. Our next speaker, Ward Miller.
Chairman Tunney?
Is that Alderwoman King?
Yes, sir. I just want to note for the record that
Hold on a second, Ward. Hold on.
Sure, thank you.
Sophia?
Yeah, I just
Sophia?
wanted to note for the record that I'm here. You didn't acknowledge me as a non-member early on, but I just want folks to know I'm listening too.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay.
Can you hear me?
Ward Miller.
Oh, you can hear me, Mr. Chairman? Yes,
I
thank
can hear you, Ward.
Thank you. I'm Ward Miller, Executive Director of Preservation Chicago. We offer our testimony to you this morning in opposition of the proposed quote-unquote House Museum Ordinance introduced by Alderwoman King in December and before you today. Preservation Chicago stands with a larger community of arts, cultural, historical, and museum organizations across our city in opposition to this proposed House Museum Ordinance. We are of the opinion that this ordinance poses so many dangers and restrictions to the cultural organizations, artists, and histories across Chicago. To that point, we at Preservation Chicago started a change.org petition in response to this demand. And this proposed ordinance, in just 7 days' time, acquired over 20,162 people from the arts, museum, and cultural community of Chicago. Large and small institutions across Chicago and beyond have signed this petition. And as of 9:30 this morning, this document spans 580 pages of signatures and over 31 pages of comments, all in opposition to this ordinance. And over 7,000 people have signed this petition in opposition just this morning alone. in that it tells us that this is simply the wrong idea, the wrong ordinance, and a poorly conceived idea that the committee should oppose. Letters from organizations like the School of the Art Institute of Chicago, the Chicago Cultural Alliance, the Puerto Rican Arts Alliance, the Society of Architectural Historians, and civic groups from around the city are in opposition to this very ordinance. Some of these institutions, like the PRAA, began in someone's home, notes Carlos Hernandez, executive director of the Puerto Rican Arts Alliance, valuing the freedom of small gatherings for cultural talks, events, and exhibitions of emerging institutions. A great many of these house museums exist in historic buildings across our city, from the house museums in Pullman to Frank Lloyd Wright's Roby House in Hyde Park, the Glessner House, the Widow Clark House, the W.W. Kimball Home, which is also home to the U.S. Soccer Federation, the Graham Foundation for the Arts, and the Maddenler House, and the Society of Architectural Historians and the Charlie Persky House, and not even and also the Treehouse Museum in the landmark Nickerson House, extending each direction, north, south, and west to the far corners of our city. These museums occupy historic buildings and houses, and if not for these institutions, many of these seminal houses and landmarks, some of world renown, would not be standing. They would not anchor our communities and provide outlets for children and adults of all ages. So much is on the line with this proposed ordinance that cultural institutions that are non-conforming would supposedly be grandfathered. But what does that really mean, and for how long, if the rules continue to change and keep moving? Thank you so much.
Thank you, Ward. Our next speaker, Bonnie McDonald.
Yes, good morning, Chairman Tunney. Can you hear me?
We can proceed, Bonnie.
Great, thank you very much. Good morning, Chairman Tunney, committee members. My name is Bonnie McDonald, and I'm the president and CEO of Landmarks Illinois. We are a 50-year-old preservation advocacy organization representing the voices of Chicagoans and those across the state. Now, today, I want to thank Alderman King for announcing that she has pulled her proposed cultural exhibits ordinance amendment. We had a very productive meeting with Alderman King yesterday about our concerns, and very much appreciate that she considered our points. I would like to go on record this morning about why we and many others were opposed to this ordinance, because it would have negatively impacted cultural organizations, small and large, those existing as well as being planned. Our reading of the zoning code's definition of cultural exhibits is much more expansive than pertaining only to house museums. We also believe it would have applied to art exhibits, listening houses, private research libraries, scientific collections, and more that provide learning opportunities for their neighborhoods. Now, our research showed that more than 30 existing or planned cultural exhibits citywide would have been impacted by this ordinance. And this number, by the way, doesn't even include the startups that we don't even know about yet. So here just are some very short points that the ordinance would have negative consequences for these reasons in our mind, requiring a rezoning or a special use permit that would have been insurmountable financially for many small nonprofits. For existing organizations, while grandfathered, becoming a nonconformity would have made expansion or reopening after a temporary closure more difficult. There also was a misunderstanding that all cultural exhibits are exempt from property taxes, and that is not the case, as several nonprofit-owned properties are still on the tax rolls. And finally, the city already has the authority to shut down cultural exhibits and impose fines within the existing zoning enforcement mechanisms for organizations that would have been operating outside their approvals and violating parking, traffic, and noise concerns. Now, the coalition of partners speaking and watching today opposing this ordinance shows just how much these organizations matter to their communities. We all believe there should be a future for cultural exhibits in residential zone districts. We also understand Alderman King's desire to engage local residents in a dialogue about their benefits to the community and how to study and mitigate any real concerns. These organizations need innovative assistance programs, clear guidelines for operation, and of course, local support. We believe supporting such dialogue can be a continued conversation with the coalition of partners here today, but not under what was the proposed ordinance. So thank you again to Alderman King and to the city council members that joined us in opposing this ordinance, and also for letting me testify this morning, Chairman. Thank you.
Thank you, Bonnie. Our next speaker, Gloria Talamantes.
Good morning, everyone. Just want to verify that I'm unmuted.
You are, Gloria, if that's you.
Yes, hi. My name is Gloria Talamantes, and I want to acknowledge that I do know that the ordinance was withdrawn. However, I do want to share some of my notes because I believe it is important to ensure that something like this doesn't come up again. I just want to share that I am a first-generation daughter of immigrant parents. I am an artist, a youth educator, cultural worker, and lifelong resident of South Lawndale in the 12th Ward. I also work in the 15th Ward. My first exhibiting space as an artist was in my neighborhood in an unassuming corner building that was occupied and was converted into a DIY exhibition space, along with a listening station for locally produced music. This proposed ordinance would limit young people who, like me, are looking for the same opportunities to be seen, as well as engage with their audience, our neighbors. Much of my work is centered on community engagement. If we are looking to engage our communities and truly center them in the process of such decisions, the engagement should not begin here at a city council hearing. Community engagement requires for city officials such as alderpeople to meet its residents where we are, not the other way around. I believe that it is intimidating to expect residents to fully express themselves about something that currently is a non-issue, let alone expecting them to learn policy language in a short amount of time. If community engagement is truly important, alderpeople should put together an educational hub somewhere in the neighborhood that focuses on teaching us the extensiveness that is the rezoning legislation language. This proposed change will limit our growth as artists and entrepreneurs. While I don't necessarily spend my money going to exhibition spaces and homes, I do spend it in the neighborhoods where they are created, and they create a positive economic impact on the neighborhood. Seeking to support to have a special permission to open a house museum or cultural exhibition space in residential area limits my creative license to work harmoniously in and around the South and West Side communities that I serve. In a time where we are supposed to be investing in Southwest, this is a total contradiction, and in an already segregated city, my work as a cultural worker to unify people and break invisible barriers, stigmas, and stereotypes that exist between Black and Brown neighborhoods, this further perpetrates segregation because these spaces are our neighborhood engagement hubs. Thank you.
Thank you, Gloria. Our next speaker is Tricia Vanek. Tricia Vanek. All right, we'll skip her for the moment. Next speaker.
Hello,
I'm sorry.
Can you hear me? Sorry. Hello, community members. Can you hear me?
We can, and identify yourself for the record, please.
I'm Tricia Vanek. Thank you for letting me speak. I run a house museum nonprofit art space at 6018 North on Kenmore in the 48th Ward. For 23 years, I've been a curator working to elevate Chicago artists and culture. I believe this ordinance proposal would have impacted Chicago's 50 years of success in supporting artists and cultural heritage, which was kickstarted with the Picasso Wall of Respect and this existing ordinance. At the Museum of Contemporary Art for 13 years, I curated many firsts of now well-known Chicago artists, from Kerry James Marshall, who has opened doors for Black artists, to Edra Soto and Theaster Gates, who ironically both run cultural spaces that would be affected by this ordinance. I left the MCA 10 years ago to foster local community and emerging artists such as Amanda Williams, asking, what is art and who can make it? Who decides? Where can art be, downtown or in neighborhoods? And what is community? And how is it created for all to benefit? This proposal strikes at the heart of what we challenge. Who decides where and what is seen and experienced by and for whom? This month's Departures magazine praises Chicago artists and their communities and how they answer these questions. I quote, on a recent trip to Chicago, I found art everywhere, crisscrossing the city's vibrant grassroots art scene, experiencing excitement on a level of Manhattan in the 90s or in recent Berlin. The magazine ends asking, what should an urban neighborhood for the 21st century look like? What is a gallery? Who decides what art is? In 1985, Madeline Murphy Robb, under Mayor Harold Washington, addressed the council's then overreach, saying, we must avoid moves that would have a chilling effect or create prior restraints on the creative process. It is not our role to be the arbiters of taste. The whole issue of who or what represents a community is in question. So if the issue is parking, fix the appalling lack of access to public transportation. If the issue is taxes and cultural preservation, charge a demolition tax to stop historic homes from being demolished and sitting vacant at a lower tax rate. Rather than fix transportation, this revision scapegoats house museums, and it polices rather than preserves cultures. Communities advance by facing what we fear, even if it is other people. If the issue is community engagement, please use these cultural spaces to do what they do, engage grassroots style, instead of abusing successful ordinances. The public outcry to this revision resoundingly shows that culture is quietly being created by communities, perhaps too quietly for everyone to notice.
Thank you, Tricia. Our next speaker is Nicholas Alvarez. Nicholas, I think you're muted.
How about that? Are we good?
Yes, we are. Identify yourself for the records.
Okay, thank you so much. I'm wishful that I am unmuted. My name is Nicholas Alvarez. I'm a full-time working percussionist in Chicago. I obtained my Bachelor of Arts Jazz Performance and Arts degree from Columbia College Chicago in 2002. And I'd like to mention that part of the reason why Chicago has so many great art schools is because we have the freedom to do these things. So I'll quickly do my best to hit some bullet points in the time that I have. First and foremost, the city's infringing on our rights and freedoms. Why? Probably because this is what I see as a Trumpism coming down the line that is unmistakably wrong and, from my point of view, illegal, because you're infringing on our rights and our freedoms. I also would like to mention that a city of Chicago being a city with no music industry and no arts industries, you're then committing genocide on our arts committees, our arts communities. And again, we're one of the largest international cities in the world, but because of the corruption and the way that the city does these things, we as artists and as people get punished, and that's unacceptable. And with a city that has no music industry and no arts industry, you are taking away all of the work that artists do individually and collectively, and that's unacceptable. I'm doing my best to see through what I see as a Jim Crow-ism, and in a city that's already severely corrupt because of the city's officials and politicians, a city that still has severe segregation and a severe segregation in relationship to our transit, again, all unacceptable. I'm curious why there is a double standard with the city giving tax breaks. I'm curious, for me, as someone who performs on the street as a busking musician, the fact that I have to pay a corrupt license to the city and be extorted out of my money is also a big sign. I see what's coming. We come here because we have the freedoms. Why does the city punish us when its corruption can't get more money? Unacceptable. And so you don't want arts, but you're happy to have gangs in the neighborhood. Unacceptable. Next thing that I see, are you going to start harassing the farms in Chicago? All of the farms that are doing their best. Also want to make it clear that Pilsen, where I used to live, I got forced out because ComEd broke my building. Pilsen is our Brooklyn, and you're taking that away. And why even have art schools in Chicago? And if you're going to make Chicago the Gotham that it is, people won't come here anymore. Thank you. Quit with this.
All right, our next speaker is Meg Dugid. Sorry if I mispronounced that, Meg. Are you on? You're still muted. Meg?
Meg, please press *6 to unmute yourself.
Thank you so much. I thought it was #6. All right, my name is Meg Duguid. No one knows how to pronounce my name ever, so thank you so much for even trying. Everyone can hear me?
Yes.
Everyone can hear me? I'm sorry.
Yes.
Yeah,
Okay,
you can
wonderful.
and continue.
All right. Good morning, and thank you for allowing me to speak today. I'm taking my time, even with the withdrawal of this ordinance, because I absolutely want to make it clear that simply this ordinance must not come back or be passed in any form. My name is Meg Duguid, and I'm speaking on behalf of myself and my partner, Michael Thomas. We are artists and arts administrators who've worked in and around artist-run spaces for more than 20 years. These galleries are not commercial spaces for the sale of artwork, but instead they are museum-like spaces where art is meant to be viewed and experienced. Every day, artists work quietly from the simple spaces inside their houses or apartments. Their work, more often than not, is unnoticed. But Chicago has a very deep history of such artist-run activities, some of which date back more than 100 years. While these projects are self-propelled, they have been a cornerstone of Chicago's cultural legacy. Many well-recognized artists have found their presence and their voices in just such spaces, all of which are well outside our current museum campus. Some of this, however, has been documented for us by museums inside that campus. In 1984, the Museum of Contemporary Art presented Alternative Spaces, A History in Chicago, a show examining artist-found cooperatives and galleries from the 1880s to 1984. In 2006, Hyde Park Art Center presented Artist-Run Chicago, which looked at artist-run galleries from 1999 to 2006. Again, in 2020, Hyde Park Art Center mounted Artist Run 2.0, which looked at similar spaces from 2006 to the present. And in 2019, Columbia College Chicago presented Where the Future Came From, an exhibition examining feminist artist-run projects from 1880 to 2019. These exhibitions and their catalogs recognize the importance of the work happening behind the quiet facades of bungalows, cottages, classic Chicago three-flats, and the garages behind them. Many of these are situated in your own wards. You may not have been aware of how active people have been simply because it leaves a light footprint. They haven't caused any traffic jams because they coexist peacefully within their own communities. Together, Michael and I manage a 501c3 called Culture Math. Our organization maintains, among other things, the Visualist.org, an archive of weekly events. The site documents almost 5,000 events annually, many in residential spaces. This proposed amendment would only serve to push this vital cultural work further underground and interrupt the ability to archive the work in these communities.
Thank you, Meg. Our next speaker, Wendy Mohammed.
Wendy Mohammed, confirming that you can hear me.
I can hear you, Wendy. Proceed.
I am the proprietor and developer of Sajda House, which is the former home of the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad. I hope this withdrawal is permanent and want to state for the record that for over 50 years, Chicago House Museums have supported the preservation and exhibition of art, books, manuscripts, recordings, cultural and historical resources for study and reading, and Sajda House is in alignment with that 50-year-old history. As a Black Muslim woman, I have navigated the corporate world and I have grown accustomed to being treated differently because of my religious beliefs and because of my last name. This ongoing discrimination communicated by issuing these random stop orders and unexplained aldermanic holds have imposed costly delays and budget overruns for my project. Starting in early 2019, several members of my team made documented attempts to reach out to Alderman King to offer our plan to be an asset to the community. We jokingly called it our Kiss the Ring campaign. What we didn't know was that we were embarking upon a 3.5-year battle with a hidden hand who never returned our phone calls and apparently didn't want us in the neighborhood. As we developed our policies and procedures, we designed a plan that would shuttle people to and from off-site parking lots. We priced out the cost of vehicles and even thought to make sure that they were luxury vehicles so as not to bring down the neighborhood. We designed a plan for controlling access utilizing technology, virtual tours, online access passes with minimal walk-up access. No other house museum is likely this focused on anticipating discrimination. But like I said, I'm no stranger to this type of prejudicial behavior. More leaders and influencers from the Black and Hispanic communities have met and dined in this property than any other property in modern day history. From the great Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King, Coretta Scott King, Malcolm X, Betty Shabazz, Senator Adam Clayton Powell, Muhammad Ali, James Baldwin, Hosea Williams, Kwame Ture, Bernard King, members of SNCC, members of the 1968 Democratic National Convention, and more. I oppose this ordinance. I hope it doesn't come back, and I declare Sagda House a house museum in the great city of Chicago. Thank you for allowing me to speak.
Wendy, our next speaker, David Peterson.
Confirming that I can be heard.
David, if that's you, identify yourself for the record and proceed.
Thank you, Chairman. By way of introduction, my name is David Peterson, Jr., and I am President and Executive Director of the 26-year-old National A. Philip Randolph Pullman Porter Museum, the world's first and only Black labor history museum that represents America's first and only Black labor union to receive a charter under the American Federation of Labor, and Chicago's first and only National Park Service site, Pullman National Monument, proudly representing the 9th Ward as a hidden jewel our Alderman, Anthony Beale, can be proud of. At the banquet table of nature, there are no reserved seats. You get what you can take, and you keep what you can hold. If you can't take anything, you won't get anything. And if you can't hold anything, you won't keep anything. And you can't take anything without organization. Asa Philip Randolph. I come before you today in solidarity with the museum and arts community across all 77 communities, thanking Alderwoman King for introducing, hearing concerns, and when drawing an ordinance that brought us all together on one accord. COVID-19 has affected small business in general, but Black business in particular. If this hasn't shown us anything, it has shown us the disproportionate support in the African-American community among cultural institutions as a direct result of decades of systematic racism. For this exact reason, it's unfair to impose exorbitant fees on small institutions in the form of permits, zoning lawyers, etc., particularly when locations like ours aren't on Chicago Park District land, therefore don't get city, state, or federal line item appropriations and are forced to fend for ourselves. John Rogers of Ariel Capital once said, access to capital is important, but I actually think equally important is access to customers. Many of us small institutions are already hurting due to losing access to our customers as we depend on foot traffic. Yes, I agree. We need a community input process, and that should come in the form of an accountability council that would meet quarterly. We need a subcommittee specifically for museums and cultural institutions to help find and share resources. This will repair the unintended damage done, and it will provide an opportunity to hear all the voices of the thousands of people that have spoken up while simultaneously appealing to the concerns of homeowners who are concerned about parking. As leaders, we aren't afforded the luxury of complaining, so now we move to solutions. 1, impose permitted parking in places of concern. 2, offer close-by parking options with shuttles. 3, create community benefits agreements with residents and museum operators. But let it be known, from this day forth on March 23rd, 2021, the museum community shall be bound together in solidarity as we protect and uphold the legacies of these stories we archive and interpret. When one of us is under attack, all of us are under attack. The Honorable Elijah Muhammad said, don't condemn if you see a person has a dirty glass of water. Just show them the clean glass of water that you have. Thank you very much and have a great day.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Naomi Davis.
Naomi Davis, can I be heard?
We can. We hear you now. Please proceed, Naomi.
Beautiful, thank you. I'm Naomi Davis, the founder and CEO of Blacks in Green, the organizational owner and developer of the Emmett and Mamie Till Mobley House Museum. Blacks in Green is a proud member of the Chicago Coalition of Black House Museums, on whose behalf I make the following statement. Chicago Coalition of Black House Museums, including the Emmett Till Home, Elijah Muhammad Home, Phyllis Wheatley Home, A. Philip Randolph Pullman Porter Museum, Muddy Waters Home, and the Bronzeville Historical Society today issued the following statement in response to the zoning amendment introduced by Alderman Sophia King of the 4th Ward, scheduled for vote today and recently pulled, and we join our coalition members in commending that it not return in any form. Alderman Sophia King has spent the last year in a failed attempt to block the development of the Elijah Muhammad Home, a legally permitted project located in King's Fourth Ward, dedicated to honoring the legacy of the former Nation of Islam leader who resided in the mansion for decades. The Elijah Muhammad Home, built in 1892, became a center for Black economic and social development from the 1950s through the 1970s, and we are welcoming in that tradition. It welcomed internationally renowned Black icons, powerfully indexed by coalition member Wendy Muhammad. Stymied in her efforts to derail the Elijah Muhammad Home, Alderman King has introduced an amendment that would outright prohibit house museums in many residential zoning districts while restricting others' expansion or require special use zoning approval subject to the discretion of the alderman. This ordinance is a shameful effort to erase Black history. We ask the zoning committee and the entire city council to continue to vote no on such amendments and ensure that Black house museums can preserve the cultural heritage sites that honor the Black heroes who made Chicago and made Chicago their home. I also want to say, on behalf of Blacks in Green, I want this committee to understand why this amendment is senseless and inappropriate. Black house museums can be created as of right. Isn't our time better spent combating profiteers like General Iron, who can freely pollute our Black and brown communities as of right? Furthermore, the Emmett Till Home received landmark designation from the Landmark Commission, a year-long, arduous, and expensive process. That achievement was celebrated by the mayor and drew widespread international press attention. Since then, we have commenced filing for federal designation as a National Historic Site. This amendment would have forced us to start the process all over again and place our entire project at risk. Why would this committee allow for this ridiculous outcome? Simply because.
Thank you, Naomi. And our final speaker is Jonathan Solomon. Jonathan, you need to unmute, sir.
This is Jonathan Solomon. Can you hear me?
We can. Proceed, sir.
My name is Jonathan Solomon. I'm a lifelong Chicagoan, a registered architect in the state of Illinois, partner in the Chicago firm Preservation Futures, and associate professor at the School of the Art Institute of Chicago. I speak today to oppose the ordinance that would practically ban future house museums in Chicago. I want to thank Alderman King for responding to widespread community outrage and pulling this proposal. I am pleased the amendment was withdrawn. However, I ultimately want to ensure that this ill-conceived amendment is tabled permanently. For as long as Chicago has had a zoning code, there has been no restriction on this use, and no significant disruptions or concerns have developed from it. Certainly nothing that would require new regulation with significant citywide restrictions. Museums and cultural institutions in residential areas are in fact a critical component of Chicago's arts ecosystem, incubating the institutions that set it apart as a world-class city of culture. The city should consider ways it can support and not hinder the multi-generational, multiracial arts community across Chicago. Specifically at this moment when so many small organizations are struggling to elevate Chicago's Black history and heritage, we must not erect burdens and boundaries. Rather, we must extend the city's help and support to these efforts. Anything less is tantamount to erasure. I want to end by speaking as a faculty member at the Art Institute, quoting briefly from a letter sent by Alyssa Tenney, president of the school, to Chairman Tunney. Residential cultural spaces, whether they are long-term preservers of Chicago's legacy, future world-class institutions, or short-lived creative outlets, play a critical role in sustaining the cultural health of our city. Art, design, and physical history are most powerful when they are intimately tied to our lived experience, and the proposed ordinance threatens artists and cultural workers' ability to create for everyone, comment on our cultural and political lives, preserve our built environment, and make sense of the world around us through the uniquely Chicago tradition of residential museums and cultural spaces. The city should never seek to dampen the creative spirit of its citizens, end quote. Thank you for the opportunity to speak to you today.
Thank you very much. That concludes the public commentary portion of the meeting. We are going to start today with the addendum to the agenda, and the item to be heard is a text amendment, document number 02021-745, an amendment of the Municipal Code section 1712-0600, 1712-1000, 1712-1003, and 1712-1005 regarding sign requirements for high-rise buildings. We have a substitute ordinance to consider. Can I get a motion to accept the substitute as amended by the same roll call?
Alderman Riley, so moved.
Applied to the determined quorum. Alderman Riley makes that motion to accept the substitute. Hearing no objection, so ordered.
And
All
Mr.
right.
Chairman, please add Alderman Hopkins to the attendance roll and the roll
Aye.
call approving the substitute.
Yes, also Alderman Burnett too, Mr. Chairman.
Alderman, thank you, Alderman Burnett, and thank you, Alderman Hopkins. Your name will be added to the roll call. All right. So we have Patrick Murphy, our zoning administrator, will speak on the matter, and then we'll have questions from committee members. Patrick Murphy.
Good morning, Chairman, members of the committee. For the record, my name is Patrick Murphy with the City's Department of Planning and Development. I'm here to discuss the proposed changes to Chapter 12 that Alderman Tunney just enumerated of the Chicago zoning ordinance as it relates to business identification high-rise building signs. The changes detailed in the proposed substitute ordinance amendment are designed to improve the consistency of the city's high-rise sign regulations, regardless of the site's zoning district or high-rise building's location in the city. Prior to today, there have been 7 significant revisions to one or more aspects of the high-rise sign ordinance, and the purpose of the substitute was to install a previously utilized graphic to identify one of the changes that proposed.
Wait a second. We've got the one pager on it. I want to put on the screen. So give us just a second, will you, please? No. Okay. Okay.
The graphic I was referring to is at the bottom of the screen with the yellow box, but I'll get to the details in a second. The updated standards would expand certain existing limitations regarding 1, the quantity of high-rise signs allowed on individual buildings. This ordinance would expand that allowance from 1 per building to a maximum of 2 if the subject building is located within a planned development and the subject tenant maintains in the building 1, its international headquarters, or if no international headquarters exists, then its national headquarters, 2, its chief executive officer, and 3, occupies or has a signed lease to occupy at least the lesser of 60% of that building's total floor area, or 450,000 square feet. 2, the size of the stylistic design element of high-rise signs. That's the yellow box in the bottom of your screen. This ordinance expands the quantity of square footage allowed to be established outside of the smallest box, which can be drawn around the remainder of the sign. This threshold expands from 10% to 25% and only for high-rise signs. And 3, the impact of the high-rise signage size calculations on the total allowed signage square footage for a zoning lot. This ordinance exempts high-rise signs from the total allowed signage on a zoning lot. However, the signs are still regulated by a previously approved, the most recent chart of sizes at various heights. Thank you for considering this amendment, and I'm happy to answer any questions that you may have.
And Patrick, before we have questions, I think in the middle of the page is talk to me about the building that may have potential for signage opportunities as we speak today.
Right. So as we were drafting this language, we worked with World Business Chicago to look at what tenants within the city, so not just within downtown, these are not limited to downtown zoning districts. These are available to buildings at any height, 150 feet or taller. These 6 buildings identified in the middle and the tenants all the way on the right-hand side of that chart are the only operating entities in the city today that could qualify under this proposal. So it's a very limited universe of possibilities to add 2 high-rise signs to a building.
All right.
This is designed to show that it's not going to be a widespread issue of signage popping up overnight, but it can also be something that the city can use as an incentive to attract corporate headquarters.
All right. How about questions from committee members? All right, let me ask a couple of them because we were briefed on this, Patrick. The issue about signs on hospitals that may be over 150 feet or corridors around the airport on Cumberland. Could you talk about those couple examples?
Sure. So I'll start with the area around the airport. There are a series of high-rise buildings on the south side of the Kennedy Expressway, west of Cumberland, that are, they're encompassed within plan developments that already exist and are not affected by this ordinance. And they already have signage, they already have legally established signage plus signage exhibits in their plan development that maintains the signage that is there. There are multiple high-rise signs on a number of those buildings. Those are non-conforming under today's rules, even absent this change or even with this change. But because they were legally established and they are, they've been done pursuant to an approved plan development, those can stay without change. And then the question you were asking about hospitals, there are a separate set of regulations dealing with hospitals and hotels, special use requirement and high-rise signage. This would not apply to hotels and high-rises. They would, a hotel, for instance, would not have a corporate, if the hotel was a corporate office for the hotel, that would be a different story. If the hospital was a corporate office for the hospital, that would be a different story. But as it stands, those have a separate review process that is not changing as a part of this.
So specifically with the corridor along Cumberland, you know, those signs have been up there for years, but if a company changed hands, you know, or merged with another company, but they still maintain their headquarters, could they have a different change of face?
Yes, sir. So the signage itself, both its location on the building, its height above grade, and its square footage are maintained in the plan development. Who the tenant is, just like any other sign, can be changed face to face at any point in the future.
Okay. All right. Alderman Lopez.
Thank you, Chairman. Good morning, Patrick. I just wanted to ask a quick question because I know a lot of this is about attracting the corporate headquarters to our city. And one of the components of this was that the CEO has to be working on site, if I remember correctly hearing. Who's going to be monitoring all of these aspects on whether or not CEO Jeff Bezos from Amazon, when he moves to Chicago, actually works in the city of Chicago? Who's going to be monitoring all that? Will that be a ACP issue, a DPD issue, or what have you?
That would be the Department of Planning and Development. That would be our staff. Specific under this ordinance, the signage in all plan developments is subject to final review by the Department of Planning. So were someone to seek a high-rise sign either today or under some version of this proposed ordinance, they would have to submit that detail to our office. We would review it for compliance with any regulations within the PD, compliance with any signage requirements, this or otherwise. And then if we can approve it based on those rules and who's occupying it, then they would be free to go ahead and proceed with their full sign application, as well as approval by the council based on the sign size and height above grade. And those rules all stay the same.
And that is a singular approval. It's not annual. It's not something that gets reviewed and checked annually, correct?
Correct. It's only approved based on tenancy change. So if company A were to move out and company B moves in, then we would perform the same review for company B, but not on an annual basis for company A.
Okay. My only concern is that, you know, especially with whatever's going to happen post-COVID, the discussions about whether or not we're going to continue working from home, whether or not people are going to have such large office footprints, assuming that they put in an application today, but then change their business model tomorrow. I want to make sure that we're, able to track and ensure that if we're offering this, that people are committed to maintaining their office footprint in that fashion.
Well, if they were to reduce their occupancy or move out of the building entirely, then that sign would be required to come down. We have the authority to request that information, to work with the Department of Buildings for any possible inspections. So we would still have the ability to monitor it going forward, as we do today.
Okay. Thank you, Patrick. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, Alderman. Any other questions? I do not see hands up.
Alderman Riley moves to pass.
Okay, so hearing no more questions, Alderman Riley moves to pass on the substituted ordinance. All those in favor?
Chairman, excuse me. I wanted to amend my motion. I moved to pass using
same roll call?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so Alderman Riley moves to pass on the ordinance by the same roll call that was used to determine quorum. Any opposed to that motion? Hearing none, the ordinance is passed as amended. All right, thank you, Alderman Riley. Now we will move on to, and to reiterate, this is what was talked about in the public comment period. Please note that text amendment document number 02020-6185, an amendment to the municipal code section 17-2-0207 regarding special use approval, prohibited uses and parking standards for cultural exhibits and libraries within various residential districts has been withdrawn by its sponsor, Sophia King. No further action will be taken by this committee on this ordinance. Nobody went, okay. All right. So now we're moving on to large signs over 100 square feet in area, 24 feet above grade. We will hear them all together. I will read the ward followed by the address and take a motion at the end. In the 11th ward, 2 signs at 3523 South Ashland Avenue. In the 27th ward, 2 signs at 1245 West Washington Avenue. In the 32nd ward at 2333 North Sealy Avenue. Also in the 32nd ward, 3 signs at 1942 West Fullerton Avenue. And lastly, in the 42nd ward at 20 West Ontario Street. If there are no questions by committee members, do I hear a motion to pass by the same roll call that was used to determine quorum?
So move.
That was Alderman Beal, moves to pass. Any objections to that motion? Hearing none, these items are passed. All right, now we'll move on to the regular agenda in an effort to minimize technical difficulties and to ensure the committee runs as smoothly as possible. The typical order in which items will be heard has been updated. Throughout the duration of virtual Committee on Zoning meetings, items will be grouped together according to attorney/witnesses and will be heard in that order rather than in the ward order. All right.
I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Alderman Burnett on the Warren Boulevard application.
Yeah, thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. Also, we work with the local community organization. We had a community meeting. Everyone's in support of it. We ask for the committee support. Thank you.
Thank you, Alderman. Any questions for the Alderman or the applicant? Hearing no questions, can I get a motion? Move to pass by the same roll call that was used to establish quorum.
Cardona, so moved.
Alderman Cardona makes that motion. Any objections to his motion? Hearing none, the item is passed. And then now we're moving to the 31st Ward on document number 20625 T1, 31st Ward, address 4173 through 4179 West Belmont Avenue. Change request. M11 Limited Manufacturing Business Park District to a B23 Neighborhood Mixed Use District. We've got screens on this one, and then Daniel.
Good morning once again, Mr. Chair. Daniel Box on behalf of the applicant from the law office of Sam Banks. The applicant is 4179 Belmont LLC, The applicant owns the subject property located at 4173 through 79 West Belmont Avenue. The property is currently vacant and unimproved. The applicant is seeking to permit a new 3-story, 17 dwelling unit residential building. The proposed building will be approximately 38 feet 8 inches in height. On-site surface parking and garage parking for 17 cars will be provided at the rear of the subject property. In order to permit the project, the applicant is seeking a zoning change from an M11 limited manufacturing business park district to a B23 neighborhood mixed-use district. We have worked with the local community and Alderman Cardona on this project. I believe a letter of support should have already been provided to your office for this project. And with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions you might have.
Right. We do have a letter of support from Alderman Cardona, but I know he's on the call. Would you like to speak on this, Felix?
Yes, Chairman. Thank you, Chairman. Thank you, committee members. I asked for your support on this zoning change. Out of the 17 units, 4 units are going to be affordable. So I brought affordable housing into this 17 unit, working with the developer, and I asked for your favorable consideration so we can move on with this project. Thank you.
All right, questions for the Alderman? I see Mike Rodriguez's hands up.
Just want to congratulate my colleague. This is awesome. Move to pass.
All right, if I don't have any no other hands up, Alderman Mike Rodriguez makes the motion, move to pass by the same roll call that was used to determine quorum. Do we have any objections to that motion? Hearing none, the item's passed. Congratulations, Alderman. And Daniel, I think that's it for today. Okay, thank you. All right.
I might have one more after this, Alderman.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm on the top of page 3. Document number 20624, 33rd Ward. Ordinance was referred on February 24th of 2021. Common address 4457 North Spalding Avenue. And the change request, RS3 residential single unit detached house district to an RM 4.5 residential multi-unit district. All right, Daniel.
One last time, good morning, Mr. Chairman. Daniel Boggs, attorney from the offices of Sam Banks. I'm here today on behalf of the applicant, Mr. Ryan Landau. The applicant owns the subject property located at 4457 North Spalding Avenue. The property is improved with a 2-story, 3-unit principal building and a rear 1.5-story coach house with 1 dwelling unit. The applicant is seeking to bring the existing building conditions into compliance with the Chicago zoning ordinance. The existing 2-story, 3-unit principal building was damaged by fire in late 2020. It will be reconstructed substantially in the same way as it existed prior to the fire. The applicant is also proposing some interior alterations to the rear coach house. The coach house will not be expanded, though, in any way. The property is not currently supported by any off-street parking, and no off-street parking will be added in relation to this zoning application. In order to permit the project, the applicant is seeking a zoning change from an RS3 residential single-unit detached house district to an RM 4.5 residential multi-unit district. We have worked with the local community and Alderman Rodriguez Sanchez on this project. A letter of support should already be on file with your office. And with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions you might have.
We do have a letter of support from Alderwoman Rodriguez Sanchez. I know she was on the call earlier. Don't see her. So
yes, I am here and I support this change.
Okay. Any questions for the Alderwoman or the applicant? Hearing none, can I get a motion to move to pass by the same roll call that was used to determine quorum?
So moved, Alderman Lopez.
Alderman Lopez makes that motion. Anyone objects to that motion?
Probably Felix.
Hearing none, the item is passed. All right, now we're in the middle of page 3. In the 7th Ward, document number 20622, the ordinance was referred on February 24th of 2021, and the common address is 8442 South Marquette Avenue, and the change request, RS3 residential single unit detached house district to an RT4 residential 2 flat townhouse and multi-unit district. Steve Friedland. Steve?
Yes, good morning, Mr. Chairman. My name is Steve Friedland from the law firm of Applegate and Thorne Thompson, here on behalf of the applicant Great Lakes Academy Support Corporation. Great Lakes Academy is the operator of a charter school at the old Mary Magdalene Church site on 8401 South Saginaw. And the request here is to rezone a parcel that they've recently acquired at 8442 South Marquette. It's a small lot, 37 by 125 feet, to rezone it from RS3 to RT4. Great Lakes Academy is going through a renovation of their campus. They've been operating a school at the church location since 2014. And in 2020, they actually bought the 2.6 acre site from the Archdiocese. One of the things they're going to do is build a soccer field on a portion of an old parking lot and an old building that was at the church site. And the purpose of this rezoning is to square off their site, basically. They bought this 37-foot lot for the purpose of having a sort of a squared off and full-size soccer field. In order for to ensure that the entire property is the same zoning district, we're making the request to rezone from RS3 to RT4. I know that my client has met with Alderman Mitchell, and it was our understanding that the office was going to be delivering a letter of support to you. I know as of yesterday afternoon, in talking with Raymond on your staff,
we have received a letter from Alderman Mitchell, a letter of support, that is.
On mute now. Thank you very much. That was my only question. With that, I'd be happy to answer any questions from the committee.
Okay. Questions for Mr. Friedland? Hearing none, can I get a motion moved to pass by the same roll call that was used to determine quorum? How about a motion?
So moved, Alderman Lopez.
Alderman Raymond Lopez moves to pass. Any objections to that motion? Hearing none, the item is passed. All right, bottom of page 3, document number 20439, 27th Ward. Ordinance was referred on July 22nd of 2020. Common address, and there are multiple. 1939 through 1959 West Lake Street. 115 through 159 North Damon. 1900 through 1958 West Maypole. 1901 through 1959 West Maypole. 1900 through 1948 West Washington, and 100 through 146 North Wolcott. And this plan development number 1097 changed to B23 Neighborhood Mixed Use District, then to plan development number 1097 as amended. All right, Steve, do you want to?
Yes.
Do you want to talk about this CHA? I think it's a CHA.
Yes, thank you.
Right? Okay.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. Again, my name is Steve Friedland with the law firm of Applegate and Thorne Thompson, here representing the applicant BMH1 LLC, which is a joint venture of Brinshaw Development and the Michaels Development Company. This is, you can go to the next slide. This is with respect to an amendment to Plan Development 1097, which is an existing plan development that has already had some significant development in it of close to 100 units. The purpose of the amendment was to allow for the next phase of West Haven Park, of this plan development, to permit a 96 unit high-rise at the location of Lake and Damon. Before I move on, I'd ask two things. We were recently at the Plan Commission last week, so I would request that the committee incorporate all of the recommendations and findings of the Plan Commission. In addition, as we went through this process, our original request was to rezone from the PD 1097 to a B2-3 and then back to the PD. Because of issues related to design changes on the project, we are actually requesting a rezoning from the PD to B2-5 and then back to the PD. You do have a substitute ordinance to that effect, and I would ask that you'd put the substitute ordinance in its place.
Planning, are you aware of the request? Anna Robles?
I am, this is Patrick. Steve, okay. Is that how you noticed for Plan Commission?
That is both how we noticed for Plan Commission, and then we re-noticed the community, and Anna has a new affidavit and a new notice with respect to the change to B2-5, which was done, Patrick, because of the height of the building.
Okay.
Yes, I have that.
Okay.
This is Anna Robles. I do have that. Thank you.
Okay, so just from a process point of view, do we take the recommendation from the Plan Commission first, or do we take the substitute first?
As a point of order, Chairman, I think it would be the substitute first and then incorporate the records following for the substitute.
I want to double check on that. Thanks, Raymond. Patrick or Steve?
Yes, sir. That is correct, sir.
So we take the substitute first, and then we accept the recommendation of the Plan Commission. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
I would agree with Alderman Lopez.
All right. Okay. Then we will take Alderman Ray Lopez moves to accept the substitute by the same roll call that was used to determine quorum. Any objections? Hearing none, the substitute is accepted. Now, Vice Chair Raboyes moves to incorporate the records from the Plan Commission by the same roll call that was used to determine quorum. And any objections to that motion? Okay, so the records are incorporated and the substitute is accepted. Thank you very much.
Thank you, and thank you. So let me explain what we're doing, and you might go to the next slide.
Stephen, for the benefit, I know we're going to hear from Alderman Burnett, but these are the, if I'm not mistaken, the old CHA sites for Henry Horner?
That's correct.
So, just so we put it in perspective, okay.
Correct. So everything that you see on your screen is part of the redevelopment of the old Henry Horner homes. And this has been redeveloped by the Brinshaw Michaels team over the last many years to the tune of about 800 units of housing that's been developed. This site, which you see is sort of in the middle of the screen, and if you move to the next slide, you'll see the PD showing this is the boundaries of this plan development. There are other PDs that are associated with those other projects, but this site, what we're proposing to do is to develop a part 4-story, part 12-story high-rise, which will have 96 units of housing, and those 96 units will include 38 CHA replacement units, 25 affordable LIHTC units, and 33 market rate units, making it a true mixed income development. One thing that is important to note, and I'm glad you mentioned the Henry Horner homes, is that much of this redevelopment has occurred subject to the Mothers Guild decree. And that this site with the 38 CHA units will actually fulfill the Mothers Guild decree to provide 258 replacement units to Henry Horner residents. So this is the last piece of that. So it's important from that perspective. If you go to the next slide, and this maybe one more, let's just show you the rendering, because I think it's a beautiful building. This design really came about through many conversations between our team and the Department of Planning and Development, where we were really pushed nicely by the department to move our density toward the Lake Street green line. One thing that's very exciting is that there is a new Green Line station at Damon and Lake, which is being developed right now. So this project is a TOD project, and as a result, really warranted the additional density, because as you can see, the other sites which are in the PD were slightly lower density. So we're really excited that this project will provide additional density next to a new transit station. I do believe that we may have on the call my client, Peter Levy from Brinshore Development. I don't think we need any comment from him right now, but to the extent there are questions, we would be happy to answer them.
Okay. All righty. I see Vice Chair Raboyes has his hand up on this project. Ariel?
Thanks, Mr. Chairman. Now, I want to congratulate my colleague from the 27th Ward. Now, is this a TOD project, and will this need parking?
So that Alderman, there will be 16 parking spaces inside the building. If I don't know if the slide before shows the parking, it may or may not. If we go one slide back, it doesn't. But underneath the 4-story development on that slide, there are 16 interior parking spaces. There are also going to be 96 bike parking spaces on the interior of the building. So there's 96 units, and we are proceeding with a 1-to-1 bike parking ratio as well on this development, really, trying to establish that use within the building. So it is TOD.
Great project. Congratulations to the 27th Ward. Thank you.
Speaking of the 27th Ward, Alderman Burnett, would you like to speak on the item?
Good. Thank you, Mr. Chairman and members of the committee. As the councilor said, this development is one of the last part of redevelopment from the Women's Guild, where they're replacing housing for CHA residents. It's a beautiful mixed income development, very beautiful design. It actually got a lot of kudos at the Plan Commission from several architects. It's very holistic. They're going to add commercial spaces on the first floor, which is going to allow the residents the potential to get some jobs in the community. It's a mixed income. They have access to the new train station that's coming up. This organization, Brenshaw Michael, have developed all of this property. They're very holistic. They offer a lot to the community as far as services goes and other activities to enhance how people live in the community. So this is just another addition of what they've contributed to the area already. Appreciate the Department of Planning and all of their help. And also, we appreciate the community, the RMC, the resident management organization, and everyone that's been involved with this. We did have a community meeting with the broader community last week. We didn't have any concerns about the development outside of folks wanting to know what can they do with the commercial property on the first floor. Everyone's excited about it and think it's going to be a beautiful addition to the community. So I ask for this body's support also. Thank you.
Thank you, Alderman. And as a member of Plan Commission, it was very well received by the members of the Plan Commission, both from the architectural point of view and the density that Commissioner Cox alluded to was a big improvement, my understanding from just listening to the testimony. So I don't see any other hands up. Okay, so I'm going to ask for a motion to move this item that was substituted and amended by the same roll call that was used to determine quorum. Can I get a motion to that effect?
So moved, Mr. Chairman.
That is Alderwoman Pat Dowell makes that motion. Any objection to her motion? Hearing no objection, the item is passed as revised and substituted. Thank you
Thank you
and
very
good luck. It's a great project. All right.
Thank you.
Next, we're going to go to the top of page 4 in the 14th Ward, document number 20617, common address 4144 West 47th Street, and the change request RS3 residential single unit detached house district to a B21 neighborhood mixed use district. Mark Kupiec.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. My name is Agnes Pleka, and I'm an attorney with the law office of Mark Kupiec and Associates, located at 77 West Washington, Chicago. And I am here today on behalf of Mr. Salvador Llanos, who is the owner of the property at 4144 West 47th Street. The applicant is requesting a zoning change from the existing RS3 residential single unit detached house district to a B2-1 neighborhood mixed use district. The subject property is improved with an older one-story mixed-use building with an existing commercial unit at the front of the building and one dwelling unit located at the rear of the building. The applicant is asking for the proposed zoning change in order to be able to continue using the existing commercial unit for commercial purposes. Just a little bit of the history of this property. It has been used for the past 20 years as a real estate office by the prior owner. The property has been actually vacant since July of last year. And recently the applicant wanted to obtain a business license to establish an accountant / income tax preparer's office. And he was advised that he needs a zoning change to a B district. And since the ground floor contains an existing dwelling unit, in order to avoid any nonconformities, we are asking for a zoning change to a B2-1, which also allows dwelling units on the ground floor. The applicant has worked with the Alderman's office to explain this project, and the applicant received the Alderman's support for this zoning change. And I believe that that letter was sent to the committee yesterday. We are respectfully asking for your support.
We have received a letter of support from Alderman Burke. I know he's on the call. Alderman Burke, would you like to say a word on this?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm happy to endorse the proposal. It's good for the neighborhood. Thanks.
Thank you, Alderman. Any questions, Alderman or the applicant? Hearing no questions, Alderman Ray Lopez moves do pass by the same roll call that was used to determine quorum. Any objections to his motion?
Yes, there will.
Hearing none, the item's passed.
Thank you so much.
All right, thank you. All right, middle of page 4, document number 20633 T1, 19th Ward. Ordinance was referred on February 24th of 2021. Common address 10921 through 10931 Southwestern Avenue. Change request, an RS1 residential single unit detached house district to a C12 neighborhood commercial district. Mike Esger. Mike?
Good morning, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. Michael Esger on behalf of the applicant Country and Western LLC. Before we get started, preliminarily, I wanted to request that there was a substitute narrative and plans filed with the department. Wanted to incorporate those into the record.
So Alderman Raboyes moves to accept the substitute narrative and plans for the type 1 application by the same roll call that was used to determine quorum. Any objections to that?
So move.
Hearing none, objections that is, the substitute narrative and plans are accepted. And continue, Mike.
Thank you. So this is an existing 20-unit residential building with 9 parking spaces and with some first floor commercial space. The purpose of the rezoning is to allow for personal service as a permitted use on the ground floor. We've met with the community and with the alderman, and there is a aldermanic letter of support on file. And with that, we stand ready to answer any questions. Thank you very much for your support.
Thank you, Michael. We do have a letter of support from Alderman O'Shea. Any questions from committee members? Hearing none. Vice Chair Raboyes moves to pass on this substantive narrative plans by the same roll call that was used to determine quorum. Any objections to the motion?
So move.
Hearing none, the item is passed with the substantive narrative and plans.
Thank you very much.
All right, staying with Mike, we're on the bottom of page 4. Document number 20636, T1, 28th Ward. Ordinance was referred on February 24th of 21. Common address 1319 through 1325 South Ashland Avenue and 1542 through 1554 West Hastings Avenue, and the change request from a B11 neighborhood shopping district to a B35 community shopping district. So, Mike, let's talk about this.
Okay, we've been in discussions with the alderman and the department, and we've agreed to defer this matter at this point.
Okay, so Alderman Raboyes makes the motion to defer this item by the same roll call that was used to determine quorum. Any objection? No objection. So this item is being deferred. All right.
Thank you very much.
Okay. Now we're on the top of page 5. And this is document number 20623, 24th Ward. Ordinance was referred on February 24th of 21. Common address 2650 West 21st Place. And the change request, RT4 residential 2-flat townhouse and multi-unit district to an RM 4.5 residential multi-unit district. Tom Moore. Mr. Moore?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Can you hear me?
We can.
Thank you. This is a recently renovated 3-flat, but it's on one of those areas where the sidewalk is up above the vaulted sidewalks. And so there is a bottom floor that's just virtually unused. It's vacant and unused. So we had a discussion with Alderman Scott, and he's willing to allow us to add an extra unit. And in order to do that, we had to go from an RT4 to an RM 4.5. And we're also adding 2 parking spaces in the back. So this property had no parking. So we'll gain an extra space. And the alderman, we have a letter of support from the alderman, and we request your support as well.
We do have a letter from Alderman Michael Scott. Questions by committee members? Hearing none, Alderman Cardona moves to pass by the same roll call that was used to determine quorum. Any objections to his motion? Hearing none, the item is passed. Moving to the middle of page 5, document number 20615, 40th Ward. Ordinance was referred on February 24th of 2021, and the common address, 5639 North Artesian Avenue, and the change request from an RS3 residential single unit detached house district to an RM 4.5 residential multi-unit district. Tom Moore.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman and members of the committee. My name is Tom Moore, and I'm representing a family, the Abrahams, Martin in particular, and they have a family 3-flat. A couple of the units are occupied by family members, and particularly the mom, an elderly lady, has disability problems, and they have a basement that could be renovated into a nice apartment that would be accessible. So the request is for the zoning change to allow the basement unit to be made into a fully accessible additional apartment. So it will end up going from a 3-flat to a 4-flat. We do have a letter of support from Alderman Vasquez, and we'd appreciate your support as well.
We do have a letter from Alderman Vasquez. Any questions from committee members for the applicants? Hearing none, Alderman Ray Lopez moves to pass by the same roll call that was used to determine quorum. Any objections to that motion? Hearing none, the item is passed. And I think that's it for you, Mr. Moore?
Yes, thank you very much.
Thank you. Bottom of page 5, document number 20638, 40th Ward. Ordinance was referred on February 24th of 2021. Common address 5717 North Ravenswood Avenue. And the change request, C11 Neighborhood Commercial District to an RS3 Residential Single Unit Detached House District. Sarah Barnes.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman and members of the committee. For the record, my name is Sarah Barnes, and I'm an attorney with the law offices of Sam Banks, located at 221 North LaSalle Street. I'm happy to be here with you all today on behalf of the property owners, Mr. Renee King and Mr. Jonathan Cooper. Mr. King and Mr. Cooper recently actually already reside at the current property, which is, or at the subject property, which is presently improved with an older frame single family residence. This property is a little bit unique in that it's one of only 2 remaining C-zoned, commercially zoned properties on this block, which is predominantly low density residential uses. In fact, there's 7 other single family homes right around on this block, right around the subject property. As such, the applicants are seeking a zoning change just simply to bring the zoning at the subject property into more compatibility with the existing improvements in the area. That will also allow for the applicants to construct a new single family home wherein they will continue to reside and grow their family. With that, the proposal does call for a rezoning from the current commercial zoning district to a residential single unit detached house district. We have met with Alderman Vasquez, and he has a very robust and meaningful community process with which we went through as well. As a result of all of that, we do have the support of the community as well as Alderman Vasquez, which has been memorialized in a letter of support, which was tendered to your office, Chairman, prior to this hearing. So with all of that, I'd be happy to answer any questions and just very respectfully request the support of this committee.
Thank you, Sarah. We do have a letter of support received from Alderman Vasquez. Any questions from committee members for the applicant? Don't see any hands up. Alderman Ray Lopez moves to pass by the same roll call that was used to determine quorum. Any objections to the motion? Hearing none, the item is passed. Now we're moving on to top of page 6. And this is document number 20620, 43rd Ward. Ordinance was referred on February 24th of 2021. Common address 2014 North Dayton Street. Change request from an RM 4.5 residential multi-unit district to an RT4 residential 2 flat townhouse and multi-unit district. And Rolando Acosta.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. Rolando Acosta here on behalf of the applicants. This property contains 4,125 square feet of land on the west side of North Dayton Street, just north of Armitage. It was previously rezoned to an RM 4.5 to accommodate some additions being made to the home by its current owners. As part of that, they committed with the neighbors to downzone it back to RT4 after those additions were completed, which is the RT4 being consistent with the remainder of the block. Hence this proposed rezoning to comply with that request. We have contacted Sheffield Neighbors. They are supportive. It was with them that the agreement was made. And I believe you have a letter of support from Alderman Smith. I'm happy to answer any questions you may have regarding this matter.
Oye, feítate.
We do have a letter of support from Alderman Michelle Smith, but I do see that she's on the call. Michelle, would you like to say a few words on the Dayton application?
I just want to speak briefly in support of it. This was pursuant to an agreement with the applicant, and so I ask the committee's support in completing this arrangement.
Thank you, Alderman. Any questions for the Alderwoman or the applicants? Hearing no questions. Alderman Raboyes moves to pass by the same roll call that was used to determine quorum. Any objections to the motion? Hearing none, the item's passed.
Thank
All
you.
right, middle of page 6. Document number 20634 T1 in the 45th Ward. Ordinance was referred on February 24th of 2021. The common address is 4435 through 4471 West Irving Park Road, 3943 through 3957 North Kilbourne Avenue, and 3942 through 3956 North Kenneth Avenue. The change request, B31 Community Shopping District and RS2 Residential Single Unit Detached House District, all to a B33 Community Shopping District. And we have Carol Stubblefield. Carol, how are you? Good morning still. I believe that. Yeah. All right, can we lead on this item in the 45th Ward?
Good morning, Mr. Chair and members of the committee. Can you hear me?
Can proceed.
Yeah, perfect. Thank you. For the record, Carol Stubblefield with Neil and Leroy, office is located at 20 South Clark Street. I'm here today on behalf of the applicant and owner of the property, Northwestern Memorial Healthcare. With me today to answer any questions on the project and the design are Charlie Cloutier from Northwestern, Director of Planning and Construction, and Troy Hogard, a design principal with Canon Design. Mr. Chairman, we did submit a substitute narrative and plans that we would like to incorporate into today's record.
So Alderman Marie Haddon moves to accept the substantive narrative and plans for the type 1 application by the same roll call that was used to determine quorum. Any objections to our motion? Hearing none, the substantive narrative and plans are accepted and before us.
Thank you. Subject property is generally located at 4441 West Irving Park between North Kenneth Avenue and North Kilbourne Avenue in the Old Irving Park neighborhood. The applicant requests a rezoning from the B31 Community Shopping District and an RS2 Residential Single Unit Detached House District to a B33 Community Shopping District to permit the construction of a new 4-story advanced outpatient care center. The building will be approximately 58 feet, 6 inches in height and have approximately 341 parking spaces located on 2 levels, below grade and above grade. The project is targeting LEED Silver certification, and the applicant has worked probably over a year now with Alderman Gardner and the community on this project, had multiple community meetings. We do have the full support of Alderman Gardner, and the Old Irving Park Association did issue a letter of support for the project. That does conclude our presentation today. We'd be happy to answer any questions.
All right. We have a letter of support from Alderman Gardner. Jim, would you like to speak on this project, please?
Yes, please. Thank you, Chairman. Good morning, members of the committee. After collaborating with representatives from Northwestern Medicine and engaging the Old Irving Park Association as well as immediate neighbors in the surrounding area, our community stands in support of building a long-term relationship with Northwestern. By developing an advanced outpatient facility in the 45th Ward, many residents who now have to travel great distances to receive necessary services will now be able to receive those same services in their own community. I want to sincerely thank Northwestern and their team for making the needed adjustments to their original proposal to make this a community-based development. Thank you.
All right. Alderman, I have a couple of questions. We're very happy to see this in the Old Irving Park neighborhood. I know that this has been an expansion plan with Northwestern in many of our communities. My question to you is parking. What about parking, and where is the entrance to the parking?
Yes, so they would be entering off of Irving, and they could enter on Kilbourne. All the parking, a lot of residents had expressed some concern if people would be parking on the residential streets. I'm happy to say that all parking would be on site in garage parking. Parking is also free. So nobody would be tempted to park on the residential streets, but they would be coming off of Irving to head southbound on Kilbourne and then pulling in the parking lot. and then while leaving, they would be able to exit on either Kenneth or Kilbourne.
Okay, and I would assume going directly back to Irving or not?
Correct, yes, yes. They can only go northbound on Kenneth and Kilbourne when they exit the facility.
And how many parking spaces are going to be in the project?
Offhand, I did know that number. How many?
Carol?
I can answer that. Carol Stubblefield, Neil and Leroy. Right now, it is proposed to be 341 parking spaces. What's required is 328, but right now we're programming at 341.
Well, there should be plenty of room inside the building rather than on the streets, I hope. Hey, Jim, is there metered parking on Irving there or not?
No, they would not be able to park on parts of Irving. They would not be able to park on, but there is not meter parking on Irving.
Okay. All righty. Any more questions from committee members?
No question. So moved by Alderman David
Okay.
Moore.
All right, so that was David Moore makes the motion to move on the substantive narrative and plans for the type 1 application by the same roll call that was used to determine quorum. Any objections to Alderman Moore's motion? Hearing none, this item is passed with the substantive narrative and plans. Congratulations, Alderman.
Chairman.
Thank you, Carol.
Thank you, Alderman.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bottom of page 6, document number 20619T1, 45th Ward. Ordinance was referred on February 24th of 2021. This common address, 6603 West Higgins Avenue, and the change request, RS3 Residential Single Unit Detached House District to a B12 Neighborhood Shopping District. Paul Kopak.
Hear me?
Paul, I think yep.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, yes, we do. A little blurry, but let's start.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. My name is Paul Kopak with offices at 6767 North Milwaukee Avenue. I represent the applicant and owner of the property, 6603 West Higgins Limited. As you mentioned, Alderman, our proposal is to change the zoning from the current RS3 residential single unit to that of a B1-2 neighborhood shopping district. This property has been a commercial property for at least 40 years, and my client has recently purchased the property. It's currently a one-story commercial building. He plans on putting his architectural firm there and dwelling units above. We had a Zoom meeting with the neighborhood that we have their approval. We do have a letter of support in my file from Alderman Gardner for recognizing his approval also for this project. The property up and down Higgins Avenue is, generally speaking, 2 and 3 flats, and this zoning change would put it more in conformity with the properties that are currently there now.
Thank you, Paul. We have a letter of support from Alderman Gardner. Jim, do you want to speak on this one also while you're still with us?
Yes, absolutely. Yes, I'm in favor of this as well as the community. We did community outreach as well, and they came back very favorable.
All righty. Okay, questions for the alderman or the applicant? Hearing none, Alderman Raboyes makes a motion to pass by the same roll call that was used to determine quorum. Any objections to that motion?
So move.
Hearing no objections, the item is passed. All right.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Alderman Gardner. Appreciate it. Be well, everyone.
All right, now top of page 7. Document number 20618T1, 49th Ward. Ordinance was referred on February 24th of 2021. Common address 6632 through 6634 North Clark Street, and the change request from a C22 motor vehicle related commercial district to a B23 neighborhood mixed use district. Tyler Manick.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman and members of the committee. My name is Tyler Manick of Shane Banks, Kenny and Schwartz at 70 West Madison. I'm here on behalf of 6632 North Clark LLC, which owns a property at 6632 to 34 North Clark. The property is currently improved with an existing 3-story mixed-use building containing 10 dwelling units allocated along the second and third floors. The existing ground floor contains 1 artist live workspace and 4 commercial units. The applicant seeks a zoning map amendment from a C22 to a B23 zoning district in order to convert one of the ground floor commercial units into an artist live workspace. After rezoning, the existing structure will remain unchanged. The building will maintain its 10 dwelling units on the second and third floors, and the ground floor will have 2 artist live work units and 3 commercial spaces. Prior to the filing of this application, the owner did meet with Alderwoman Haddon and the Rogers Park Building Alliance, who each are supportive of this request, and a letter of support should be on file from Alderwoman Haddon. As a result, I respectfully request this committee's favorable recommendation to approve this zoning map amendment to rezone 6632 to 34 North Clark to a B23 zoning district, and I'd be happy to answer any questions.
All right. Alderman Marie Haddon.
Thank you, Chair. Just want to say that we also have a pretty robust community zoning process, and this project with this change does have my full support at this time, and look forward to having some more creative use of spaces as we look to kind of recovery in some of the changing retail corridors that we have. So thank you, and I appreciate my colleagues' support on this.
Thank you, Alderwoman. I have just a quick question for Alderwoman Haddon or Tyler. So how many, there's going to be 2 artist workspaces on the ground floor. Are there other commercial entities on the ground floor also?
Yeah, there's 3 commercial units that are rented out. This 4th one was a long vacant space. It's not on the Clark Street front. It's off on a side street. So that's why it's configured better to artist live workspace.
So by moving the whole building to B23, does it throw anything else out of conformity?
No, the building currently is an existing legal non-conforming building. So this brings it all into conformity.
Okay, great. All right. Any questions? Other questions, I should say? All right. So let's see. Vice Chair Raboyes moves to pass by the same roll call that was used to determine quorum. Any objections to the motion?
So moved, Mr. Chairman.
Hearing no objections, the item is passed. Congratulations. All right.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Bottom of page 7, document number 20562, 31st Ward. Ordinance was referred on December 16th of 2020. And the common address is 3054 through 3058 North Costner Avenue. And the change request, RS3 residential single unit detached house district to an RM 4.5 residential multi-unit district. Okay, Tyler.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and members of the committee. Again, for the record, my name is Tyler Manick of Shane Banks, Kenny and Schwartz at 70 West Madison. I'm here on behalf of 3058 North Costner LLC, which owns the subject property at 3054 to 58 North Costner. As a threshold matter, after filing, we did amend this application to a type 1 zoning map amendment with narrative plans. So I'd like to request that this committee move to amend the application to a type 1 application.
So Alderman Kerry Austin moves to amend the application to a type 1 application by the same roll call that was used to determine quorum. Any objections to her motion? Hearing none, the item is amended to a type 1 application. And Tyler, continue.
Yes, 3058 North Costner is improved with an existing 2.5-story masonry building containing 6 dwelling units. 3054 North Costner is a vacant lot. The owner seeks this zoning map amendment from an RS3 to an RM 4.5 zoning district in order to make the existing building in a conforming zoning district and allow him to split the zoning lots in order to improve the vacant lot with a 2-flat at 3054 North Costner. Prior to filing this application, the owner did meet with Alderman Cardona, his zoning advisory council, and the neighbors on the block. And the alderman did give a letter of support, which should be on file with the committee. Consequently, I respectfully request this committee's favorable recommendation to approve a zoning map amendment, rezoning 3054 to 58 North Costner to an RM 4.5. And I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Questions by committee members? Alderman Cardona, I know you put a letter in. You want to speak on this?
Yes, thank you, Chairman, and members of the committee. When they came and proposed the ordinance to us, it went in front of my zoning advisory committee. We agreed upon it, give the applicant the opportunity to build. They did have a Zoom meeting with the residents around where the site is going to be, and I know everything went well and they were okay with the zoning change. So I'm asking the committee for your favorable consideration on this project, and thank you.
All right, questions for the alderman or the applicant? All right, hearing none, Alderman Haddon moves to accept this amended application to the type 1 by the same roll call that was used to determine quorum. Any objections to that motion? All right, hearing none, the item is passed as amended.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. Now we're have an exciting project here coming from the Plan Commission. And that is document number 20573, 3rd Ward. Ordinance was referred on December 16th of 2020. Common address is 2500 through 2548 South Wabash Avenue. And the change request is a C15 Neighborhood Commercial District and M13 Limited Manufacturing Business Park District to a C23 Motor Vehicle Related Commercial District and a C23 Motor Vehicle Related Commercial District to a Business Entertainment Plan Development. That was a mouthful. Okay, Graham Grady.
Good afternoon, Chairman Tunney and members of the committee. My name is Graham Grady. I'm an attorney at the Taft Law Firm. I, along with my co-counsel Sylvia Mikas, represent the applicant, Smash Interactive LLC. First, Chairman, I request that the record of the March 18th Plan Commission hearing be entered into the record of this committee.
Okay, Vice Chair Raboyes moves to incorporate the records from the Plan Commission by the same roll call that was used to determine quorum. Any objections to that motion?
So move.
Hearing none, the records are incorporated. So continue, Graham.
Thank you. Also, I would request that we take, along with application 20573, the companion application, which is next on the agenda, application number 20585-T1.
Let me read that into the record, Graham. Okay.
Thank you.
So we will be considering both of these ordinances at the same time, since it's all one project. And I'll read that one into the record. That's number 20585T1, 3rd Ward. Ordinance was referred again on December 16th of 2020. This common address is 2601 through 2625 South Wabash Avenue, and also 43 to 63 East 26th Street. And this change request, M13 Limited Manufacturing Business Park District to a B11 Neighborhood Shopping District. And as we go through the presentation, we'll understand why we're putting them together. Okay, Graham?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. In addition to myself, available to answer questions are Scott Greenberg and Chris Lay, the co-founders of the applicant Smash Interactive LLC, along with Jackie Koo, principal at Koo LLC, Andrew Buck, and Lue Abuna. First, we'd like to thank and acknowledge Alderman Dowell for her leadership in a highly effective community review and engagement process. I believe Alderman Dowd is present at this committee meeting. We'd also like to thank staff of the Department of Planning and Development, Emily Thrun, Noah Safranek, Patrick Murphy, and Anna Robles, as well as staff at CDOT and the other agencies who have contributed to this project. You're seeing on this slide the red trapezoid, which is the primary location for the plan development application at 25th and Wabash. The red rectangle lower to the right is the location of the T1 application for the offsite parking. If we could go to the next slide, please. This is the elevation designed by Jackie Koo, who's a highly regarded Chicago and national international architect. The applicant proposes to construct and establish and operate an esports stadium with food and beverage operations together with the applicant's corporate headquarters. The applicant proposes to develop a two-story, approximately 108,000 square foot professional esports stadium with organized multiplayer video game competitions and the Bronzeville Esports League in conjunction with IIT and area CPS schools. The project incorporates the existing Cozy Cyclery building, which you see on the left side, as well as a new interconnected structure. Surge will be the first purpose-built, spectator-oriented esports venue in the Chicago and the Midwest, and will be located in the Bronzeville community. This project is a $30 million capital investment into Bronzeville and will contribute significantly to the economic vitality benefiting Bronzeville and the city of Chicago. The project includes a stadium for esports competitions, a large virtual reality participation esports component, and the office headquarters for the applicant's company. Regarding bicycle parking, Chairman, hearkening back to the Plan Commission hearing from last week, taking you up on your recommendation and that of other members of the Plan Commission, we have increased the amount of bicycle parking to 46 spaces, and the project may include an on-street bike corral in conjunction with review of CDOT. So thank you very much for that recommendation. We're also looking into the possibility of having a divvy bike station nearby. Next slide, please. This is the pedestrian context. Next slide. This is the overall. You're looking on the upper right. This is actually the roof plan of the Surge Stadium. And on the lower left is the offsite parking, which will have 90 parking spaces. Next slide. This is the landscape plan. Next slide. Taking a look at the interior, the areas in blue are the arena component where the competitions of the esports will occur. The areas in gray, the large rectangles, are the virtual reality spaces. Next slide. This is the second level plan. Next slide. These are the elevations which show the LED screens which face away from the residential areas and towards the expressway. Next slide. These are further details of the elevations. Next slide. The facility is open to the public, but the events will be ticketed events, just like other stadiums in Chicago, Wrigley Field, Comiskey Park, Wintrust. And there's a capacity of 1,040 people. Next slide. Again, this is the exterior of the building along Wabash. Next slide. Next slide. This is the site plan for the parking. We'll have 60 exterior parking spaces and 30 interior spaces. At the request of the alderman in the city, we've relocated the driveway off of 26th Street and we put it onto Wabash to help facilitate traffic in the neighborhood. Next slide. Of the retail building, there's a retail component in the offsite parking building. The facade will be restored and enhanced. Alderman Dahl has requested that there be retail to contribute to the pedestrian experience along Wabash, and the applicant is happy to provide that retail. Next slide. There will also be an art mural facing the parking and facing 26th Street. Next slide. This facility, which is in the bright green in the center, will really create a terrific linkage between Motor Row, which is in the gold at the lower left, and the IIT campus, which is in blue at the upper right. And we anticipate that along Wabash, there will be a tech and commercial corridor, which will be a great enhancement for this part of Bronzeville. Next slide.
You've created a lot of attention for the committee members, so we got some hands up on this.
Good. Look, if I just want just a couple more points, I'll go quickly. Next slide. I want to touch on the
Quickly,
Bronzeville
Graham.
Sports League.
Okay,
I'll take the
continue.
questions. At any rate, there's a terrific collaboration between the applicant and IIT and areas junior and high schools, which will expose the students at those schools to both the virtual reality as well as the esports league, and hopefully spark an interest in technology in the students. And we'll also provide them with the opportunities to compete for college scholarships in esports. But I'll yield, Mr. Chairman, to answer the questions.
Yeah. Well, I'm going to start with Alderman Dowell. So I know how much you worked on this and can probably articulate it better than anybody. Pat?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you to the members of the committee for your consideration of this exciting project coming to the Third Ward. I want to thank Graham Grady and Mr. Greenberg and Mr. Lyle from Smash Interactive on the surge development here. This project has garnered the support of the adjacent neighbors, which after some discussion with them, along with many community-based organizations in the area. I'm especially excited about their commitment to create the Bronzeville Esports League and to work closely with three CPS schools in the ward, including the National Teachers Academy, the Drake Elementary School, which serves the children of Dearborn Homes, and Phillips High School, which is our neighborhood high school. I'm also have committed from the developers a commitment to minority participation, both in contracts and hiring, and also in the capital stack. So I'm very excited about that opportunity as well. So I ask for your support for this project, and we hope to get under construction sometime this year, hopefully.
Thank you, Alderwoman.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
First hand up was Alderman Osterman.
Thank you, Graham, for the presentation. I want to commend my colleague, Alderman Dowell, on the hard work, one of many projects she's brought to her neighborhood. As a father of teenage boys, I know more about esports than I care to. And I know that this will be a draw that will bring people to that part of Bronzeville and part of her community, or Motorola. And I think, you know, there's going to be economic benefits to come to that. I guess the one question I have, I know that they have these big esports tournaments, which are draws and are now on ESPN and everything else. What is the Monday through Thursday or Sunday through Thursday look like for use of the space? And is it something where casual users can go, and there's parts of the building where people can come and play these games?
Yes, Alderman Osterman, thank you for your question. Yes, indeed. The principal use of the building will be in the evening and on the weekends for the sports competitions. But to your point, the virtual reality program, as well as the building generally, will be open to the public, and people can have events, for example, with the virtual reality component for families or organizations, in addition to the formal esports competitions in the stadium component, as well as the virtual reality component. So this facility will be a real amenity for the community, not just for the esports competitions.
Great. Congratulations on the first of its kind in Chicago, and probably the biggest around in our area, and all the best with the project. Thanks.
Thank you, Alderman Osterman.
Alderman Beal.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just wanted to chime in and congratulate the Alderman on an outstanding project. Esports is the way of the future. If you look at some of these esport tournaments, they are amazing and they're well attended. And, I don't think we're going to have enough parking and, in the immediate area. So I want to encourage the aldermen to be looking for some off-site parking and, because this thing is going to take off based on what I've seen online and the research that I've done on esports is really amazing. So, just hold on to your bootstraps, aldermen. This is going to be a wonderful project and it's going to take off and do wonderful things for your ward. So congratulations, and congratulations to you also, Graham.
Alderman Beal, thank you. I'd like to touch on that very briefly. In addition to the 90 spaces provided as a part of the zoning map amendment, the applicant has also leased 25 spaces immediately behind the facility underneath the CTA green line. Those spaces are not a part of the PD because they're on a license rather than a long-term lease. In addition, the applicant has made arrangements for 100 space offsite parking with one of the local churches just a couple of blocks away. In addition to that, we're in communication with a very large owner of parking in the facility for overflow upon overflow parking in the event that we need that. However, neither of those three offsite, the CTA, the church parking, or the other large provider are formally a part of the PD application. But to your point, Alderman Beal, we are prepared for overflow parking when this place takes off. Also, as to your point, esports is the second largest fan-based sports in America, second only to the NFL. So you're spot on, Alderman Beal, that esports is the hot ticket.
Absolutely.
Thank you, Graham. Thank you, Alderman. Alderman David Moore.
Thank you, Chairman. Unfortunately for me, I don't know how to play any of those games. I haven't played since Atari, but I'm just excited for Alderman Dow and for this community. She's worked so hard on this effort and to just change the face of this community but the great addition that she's doing is always making sure that the children of like Dearborn, the kids at Phillips are always have a part in this, and that it's just not for tourists, because we do need the tourism, because we do need the dollars, and that's a good thing. But it's great that the children and the residents in the neighborhood will be able to take advantage of this great venue. So I'm excited about it. I definitely get down there, bring my nieces and my nephews. Again, I don't know how to play those games. And when they went from one joystick to 2 and 3 buttons, I got lost. So, but it's a big thing for Chicago. This is huge for Chicago. And I think it's going to help also push some of that tourism further south so that the southern parts of our city can get the benefits as well. So I'm definitely in support of this. And if no one else have mentioned, I definitely move to pass on this.
Well, before we take that motion, we have Alderman Haddon would like to comment on this.
Briefly, if I might respond to Alderman Moore. The applicant has collaborated with IIT and April Welch is a designated person to help make sure that the relationship between the applicant and the surge facility and the local schools is a robust one. And so to your point, Alderman Moore, there will be full participation by the community to take advantage of this great asset. So thank you.
Alderman Haddon. Thank you.
Great, thank you, Chair. I just wanted to add my support and voice my excitement. Alderman Dow, congratulations, and thank you for bringing this really inspirational project to fruition. So Mr. Grady, this is fantastic. And so you've got my full support, and I'm also excited to come visit and also see this demonstration of different things that are possible in our city. So thanks, Chair.
Thank you.
Thank you, Alderman Haddon.
Alderwoman, thank you. Now, Graham, I have one question that's brought to my attention. Is there a substitute on the parking aspect of the application?
No, there is no substitute. We actually have by the time we filed the application in December, we had worked out those details. And with regard to the T1, we have made adjustments with Anna Robles in the department, in which we made changes with regard to the general compliance with the CDOT landscaping comments. We've also have incorporated a bump out for the southeast corner of 26 and Wabash as an extension of the curb for pedestrian safety. And we also have added a traffic control arm and parking in the private area for the landscape parking lot. And
Okay.
all those drawings have been provided to Anna Robles in the Department of Zoning.
Okay.
Yeah, that is a substitute, Graham. With the changes, triggers that substitute narrative and plans.
Anna, thank you. In that case, Mr. Chairman, we
Okay.
request a move of the substitute. Anna, thank you as always.
Okay, so what I'm gonna do, first of all, I'm gonna ask for the substitute on the document number 20585 T1 in the 3rd Ward. That's the parking lot, 2601 through 25 South Wabash Avenue. So I'm gonna ask Alderman Haddon. Alderman, Vice Chair Raboyes moves to accept the substitute by the same roll call that was used to determine quorum on that issue alone. Any objection to that motion? Okay, so hearing none, the substitute is accepted on the document number 20585 T1. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna separate these two motions out because I think that's the best way to do it. So we're gonna go back to document number 20573, and that is the building in of itself. And this item was passed by the Plan Commission. So I'm gonna need Alderman Haddon to move this item by the same roll call that was used to determine quorum. Yes. And that is on the building itself. So that being said, no objections to that. That application is affirmed. And now we're gonna move on to the, okay, so that first one is going to be passed as revised. And now we're on to the parking lot one. And that is document number 20585 T1. And if I don't have any questions by committee members on that motion, I need a motion to move to pass by the same roll call that was used to determine quorum. And that was Alderman Beal. And any objections to his motion? And with that, this second item is going to be passed as substituted and revised. All right, and before we move off to that one, I really wanted to, we spent a lot of time on this on Plan Commission, and you know, I know that there was a lot of positive feedback from the Plan Commission members, and I appreciate the idea of taking some more bike parking, and I think that might be a wise move. But as our committee members on the zoning committee, want to congratulate Alderman Dowell for the amount of work put into it and the economic engine that we think this will entail for the entire city residents that are 21 years and under. So.
Mr. Chairman, can I just say one last thing to Alderman Moore, actually to all my colleagues who said something. Thank you very much for your support. But to Alderman Moore, I wanted to let you know that the person that's responsible for pulling together the IIT and the community component and the esports league is April Welch, who is a Bronxville resident. So that worked out well. Thank you.
That's awesome, Chairman.
And April was the most charismatic speaker in the whole Plan Commission. I just wanted to put that in the record for that one. So
I am.
All right. Okay, so congrats all around, and thank you for an exciting presentation.
Thank you, Alderman Dowell. Thank you, Chairman Tunney, and all aldermen.
Now we're going to move to the bottom of page 8. And this is document number 20542, 27th Ward. Ordinance was referred on November 16th of 2020. Common address 160 North Elizabeth, and the change request, C13 Neighborhood Commercial District to a DX7 Downtown Mixed Use District. Katie Janke-Dale. Katie?
Thank you. Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman and members of the committee. For the record, my name is Katie Janke-Dale from the law firm of DLA Piper, located at 444 West Lake. And along with my colleague, Rich Clowder, I represent the applicant in this matter, 160 North Elizabeth Holdings LLC. As a preliminary matter, this application was considered and recommended for approval at the March 18th, 2021 Plan Commission hearing, and I would request that the transcript from that hearing be incorporated into the record.
All right, Vice Chair Reboyas moves to incorporate the records from the Plan Commission by the same roll call that was used to determine quorum. Any objections to the motion? Hearing none, the records are incorporated. Continue, Katie.
Thank you. Next slide. Great. This parcel is approximately 33,000 square feet located at the northwest corner of Randolph and Elizabeth. It's currently zoned C13, and we're requesting a rezoning to the DX7 prior to establishing a residential business plan development. Next slide. The zoning change request would allow the construction of a 27-story building containing a maximum of 375 units in ground floor commercial space. All 20% of the required ARO units will be provided on site. We held a community meeting in December 2020 and community group meetings prior to that. I would like to thank Alderman Burnett, DPD, and the various community groups for their support and input throughout the process. With that, we are available for any questions, but we respectfully request a positive recommendation of this committee for this matter. Thank you.
All right, Alderman Burnett, would you like to speak on the item on Elizabeth?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. So this is a unique development, which is the developer is a conglomerate of about 3 architects that put it together. They revised this development to meet planning's request for a development that they like. They work with the community. They went to all 3 community organizations. We had a community meeting. They have the majority of the community support. We ask that this committee support it. We appreciate the fact that that they're going to have 20% affordable housing. They're going to have their contractor joint venture with African-American contractor, and we look forward to this development happening. We appreciate this committee support. Thank you.
Thank you, Alderman. Any questions from committee members? Okay, before I take a motion, I was on the Plan Commission, and this item was well received by the Plan Commission members, especially the architecture on this one. And I just know that it's maybe the question for the Alderman, I'm just thinking out loud, is this reflective of the general area in terms of the density and height, or is this where it's going?
Well,
rather than where it's at.
Yeah. So if you recall, a lot of the developments that has happened in this area, east of here, there's things that are much taller. West of here, we have approved developments that are taller also. So this is right in the middle.
Okay.
It's not as tall as most things, but it's not as short as some of them also. As you know, this property value has gone up in this community, and only way to get a critical mass in order for what you pay for the property is to build bigger. But what planning does is make sure that they don't use all of their FAR. As you can see, they push the building back. They kind of jagged it up, you know. And so if they use all of their FAR, the building would be shorter. If they use all of the floor plate, the building would actually be shorter. So this is how in the design guidelines that planning has now for this area, they don't want buildings to cover the whole floor plate. They kind of want to mass it on the first floor, but also you know, move the developments around and kind of bring it up a little narrower. You know, so that's planning's thing. So.
Great. Thank you, Alderman. Questions for Walter or Katie, the applicant? Okay, hearing none. Motion by Alderman Pat Dowell to move this item by the same last roll call that was used to determine quorum. Any objections to the motion? So the item is passed as revised. Congratulations to everybody. All right, the last item, I believe, staff, last item, okay. Page 9, Document number 20591, 27th Ward. Ordinance was referred on January 27th of 21. Common address, 1229 West Randolph Street. Change request, C13 Neighborhood Commercial District to a DX5 Downtown Mixed Use District, and then to a planned business plan development. Katie?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Again, for the record, I'm Katie Jenke-Dale from the law firm of DLA Piper, which represents Thor 1229 West Randolph LLC, the applicant for this matter. This matter was also heard in front of the March 18th, 2021 Plan Commission hearing, and we would request a hearing, or the transcript from that hearing be incorporated into the record today.
So Alderman Carrie Austin moves to incorporate the records from the Plan Commission by the same roll call that was used to determine quorum. Any objections to her motion? Hearing none, the records are now incorporated. You continue, please.
Thank you. This is a relatively small parcel located at the southwest corner of Randolph and Willard. The current zoning is C13, and we are requesting a rezoning of to the DX5 and then to a business plan development. Next slide. The proposed zoning change will allow for the construction of this 9-story commercial building shown on the screen. We held a community meeting in February 2021 and community group meetings prior to that with Wilco, NAL, and WCA. Because of the applicant's excellent track record in the neighborhood, as well as what most considered excellence in architecture shown on this screen, we received support from the various community groups. We'd like to thank Alderman Burnett, the community groups, and DPD for their help on this project. We're available for questions, but respectfully request a positive recommendation on this matter. Thank you.
All right. Last but not least, Alderman Burnett.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So this is another unique development, small plot of land, but they making it work. It looks beautiful. We had community meetings. The community supported it. We didn't have any challenges. Planning, I'm sure, encouraged them to do the best they can with their architecture, as they have been doing lately. And they came out with a beautiful product. Everyone in the community supported. These guys also commit to joint venturing with African-American contractor, hiring people from the community. It's a commercial development. We've also been talking to them about possibly having some affordable commercial on the first floor. So we ask for the committee support on this. Thank you.
All right, Alderman David Moore.
No, he answered it. I was going to ask, was it all commercial or just a mix of commercial and residential, but he answered it. Thanks.
All right. Any other questions, comments? Before I ask for a vote, I just wanted to say that this was also tremendously received by the members of the Plan Commission for its architectural and uniqueness. And it's, I think it's up on that second floor. It's a recessed balcony. It kind of puts more of the scale, takes a little bit off the height of it. And it was really, I think at the end of the Plan Commission meeting, the members of the Plan Commission said this was one of the more exciting Plan Commissions with the diversity of uses and architecture that they've seen in a long time. So kudos to you, the team, and also to Alderman Burnett. This is really interesting developments and architecturally significant buildings, we hope, for the long term.
And Mr. Chairman, I think you'd be remiss to not mention that it's a Latino architect who designed this building.
I was remiss. And what is the name of the architect, Katie?
It's JGMA, Juan Moreno and his team.
All right. Really defended the project very well in front of Plan Commission. So, all right. So I'm going to, no more questions. Alderman David Moore moves to pass by the same roll call that was used to determine quorum. Any objections to his motion?
I think Ms. Vanderoe will be very happy.
That doesn't sound like an objection. So this item is passed as revised. And with that, I would like to entertain a motion for adjournment.
So moved.
As Carrie Austin moves to adjourn. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, the meeting is adjourned. We'll see you all tomorrow. Thank you.
All right, have a great evening.
Thank you very much.